How we, are you?
That's good. It's had some. Oh, that will not be.
That's a meeting begin.
You're unmuted.
And
You're welcome. So,
Okay.
anytime you'd like.
I was just about to say. Good thing. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Environmental Action Advisory Council meeting. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. And start off with this budget releases.
But allegiance to the flag and the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's like mostly present. Well, we could list the members.
Right, you could just list who's not present as well.
Okay.
That's another alternative.
Pat Owens, chair, is absent. Eric White is absent. That's about it. And minutes, we got minutes here. Thank you for putting all this stuff out.
Hey, bro, welcome, sir. There's just one thing. There's a lot of little things, I should say, little indentations and, you know, some folks' last names were left out and minor grammatical, revisions that I'd like to incorporate into the final minutes. Like, for example, the whole section B needs to be indented, and also last names need to be added throughout the document. And so these changes have to be discussed here at this meeting since the minutes were already sent out in the board package. So that's my only feedback on the minutes. If anybody else has anything else prior to the motion, I would just ask that motion with those revisions I suggested be made at some point.
Okay, motion.
I'll now motion to approve the minutes with the changes of adding names and few spaces as noted by Alex.
Thank you, Michael. Second. I'll second it. Motion's passed.
So Alex, you're saying basically there's no content change in PDFs, is that correct?
That's correct. The
Yeah.
content remains, it's just mostly just formatting and a couple of grammatical things.
Okay. Old business.
We got a vote though.
Oh, let's vote.
Persons.
Thank you. All vote for passing the minutes. Aye. Aye. Okay, in the. I had a note in the minutes about my conversation. I was gonna have a conversation with Gary Swartz regarding this farm. So something. Want me to fill you in with that chat I had with him? Would that be the time or at some point?
I would wait until B
Okay,
for that, if you wouldn't mind.
no, no. Gotcha.
For A, Brett, I would be happy to lead that agenda item. If you,
Please.
okay, sure. So, yeah, so the council last month was given this document here, public participation and power, and we promised to read through the document. And I also read through the document and, you know, I spoke with the township and, you know, in reading through the documents, there was a lot of consistency with how, with the township's position on how they like to see recommendations made. And it basically boils down to the township would like, they would like us to continue to make written recommendations on certain things that, you know, they're relevant. When those recommendations are put to the supervisors, they should reference specific sections of the zoning ordinance, the saldo, and then tie it very specifically to, you know, those, you know, something that we have in the books, basically. And this document actually speaks very much to that. And, you know, if you look down through my notes, there's so much good information in this book. It was a little hard for me to, put it all on a one pager. I tried to highlight the pages that I thought had some of the more poignant points. But I'll just go right to the one I just spoke about. It is basically like tips for proposing ordinance amendments, ordinances where the action is, understanding public meetings and hearings, and tips for making, especially tips for making effective public comments. And then a general note about decision making, and then those tips, page 51, tips for making public comments on a proposed ordinance. I'm just gonna turn that page real quick, because I think that is the one that covers like a lot. You basically said participate early in the process, you know, how you believe the proposed amendment will affect the environment, whether positive, negative, aspects of the ordinance, you know, there's.
I can wholeheartedly highlight that first point, participate early in the process. It's true. If there's, when there's a suggestion that comes after hearing,
Yep, that's yours to keep. Continue, guys, sorry.
when there's a suggestion that comes after hearing, I mean, after months of working on something, it can be tough because you then know it has to then go back to Monroe County Planning Commission, then has to go back to by law and back to the Planning Commission. And then you have to reschedule, and it can be multiple months, and so it can be frustrating. So as early as possible, that's the more likelihood that you're gonna get something put, whereas if it's on the last day, you might be like, all right, we're gonna move it forward as is. We'll come back later to address that issue, even if we agree. So I just want to highlight
That's a really good point, I wonder how we can promote that early participation, so.
I think luckily this particular group is, you know, there's really only two committees that are formally meeting, one required planning commission, this is the other one, so. And it's in a good position and has, you know, staff member here and supervisor here to give intel on when stuff's coming down the pike, so.
In general, though, across the whole organization, I know supervisors and planning commission folks, they get comments and people coming in late to the process. If there's a, I don't know, if there's probably a community bulletin board, I don't know.
Well, I guess I should say, I mean, for you, Alex, as well, I mean, the fact that this is saying, you know, ordinances are sort of key, so when there's an ordinance that's starts to get drafted, it should be on this agenda, you know, for, you know, even when it's just in its very beginning stages, I mean, right? I don't know, there's a lot that this group wants to talk about as it relates to signage, but, you know, we're redrafting the signage ordinance for this township right now. There's a few others that we're working on, but at least to be aware, maybe Alex, maybe that's something that can just be sort of standing agenda, like, what are some ordinances or that we know the township's working on right now? Whether this group might wanna weigh in. That's one way.
Excellent. How can we actually put that mechanism in place? Is that working with, who is working with the zoning board or working with general information on the website? In terms of promoting ordinances or bringing ordinance to us to.
The question was, how do you make that mechanism that Michael meant work? I think Michael said work rather. I think the mechanism would be a standing agenda item for ordinances that are currently being worked on. For example, right now we have a lighting ordinance, which will definitely be relative to what this group is interested in, and also a signage ordinance. Those are the two big ones that we're working on as a township right now. So the mechanism, I think, would be the standing agenda items. We'll just add that as, you know, as maybe an old business, just any updates. I think that's a great idea.
By the way, your agenda really matters because of the sunshine law that effectively prohibits this group, planning commission, and the supervisors from really actively talking about something that's not on the agenda.
Gotcha.
It also means you have to be smart when you write your agenda and you want to make them pretty vague. So that allows you to talk about things without being ridiculously vague. But, you know, being able to say standing ordinances offers you the opportunity to chime in on any ordinance that might be in development. So that's a great suggestion, just putting it as a standing item, and I can bring it up or whoever can do that.
Okay. Make a motion to add a standing agenda item for upcoming and pertinent variances or ordinances.
Ordinances, yeah.
as a regular item on the agenda. Do
I'll
I-
second that.
Thank you. It's vote. All here say aye.
Aye.
Aye, excellent. Thank you. Good idea. All right,
You're immediately putting this document to use.
it's a beautiful thing.
Does anyone, I just, before you move on to the next agenda item, Brad, does anybody have any thoughts or comments on this document by Penn Future, having read through it yourself?
You mean the entire document?
Yeah, anything
Oh.
that stood out to you?
Well, it seems like every person's guide to municipal government and how it works, it's supposed to work. So, I mean, I've been a public servant before, elected public servant, and so a lot of the stuff is not new to me. In Ohio, there are sunshine laws, just as they are here. But there's a lot of other things in here that I did not know, so I think it's a useful document for anyone to have, and even in general, it's too bad that the public in general, especially our public schools, really don't teach some basic civics like this, you know, and you won't even find it in a college political science class, probably. So this could be a very useful document for anyone who's interested in how government works at this very local level, which is really, if you think about it, this is really the most important level of government, because this is where decisions about where buildings are put, you know. Just think about all these massive warehouses that are going up all over the place and how they interrupt what's going on. So, you know, I don't want to belabor this topic, but the comment in general, I think it's a very useful document.
I agree. I think this is kind of like a death accessory for how to get around and do the right stuff within the township. And I'm wondering if this could be published as a website. This PDF,
Probably is out there in the future, but I don't know.
and put it right on the upper, in the left menu of the for public outreach. If you have any questions about how to proceed, check this link and it comes up with this full book online, which could be right there for everybody.
It's not bad, yeah, I don't know if that needs to be a resolution or anything, but can you add to like the action points? That I'll just talk to Julia and or Jacob in his role as the webmaster, to suggest putting a link to this document. I agree, I mean, I was on the planning commission for, I don't know, 8 years and, I wish I had been given this document then, so.
Under heading where to start.
Yeah, where to start, and
Okay.
how can, we influence,
Yeah, kind of like as a readme.
what in the world is municipal government?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, that's great.
Well, that brings up another issue that's addressed a little bit here, I forget on each page. But there's mention about public notices and where to put them, and there's a requirement that we in the widest circulation local newspaper. And we've got a problem here in Pocono, because we don't have a real local newspaper anymore. It's the decisions about the editorials are made somewhere else, I don't know where they are. But you know, the Pocono Record that we once knew is gone. And very few people subscribe to it, and I can tell.
Well, luckily our township does more than the bare minimum by, well, that's the law says. Technically, yes, we do post in the Pocono Record. Because that is the most widely circulated and does do print still, even though many people don't subscribe to it. But it fits that criteria of the law, but compared to many other townships, we do a lot more, so there's a lot available online, so there's a lot on the Facebook page, so. Luckily, there's an effort to get as much public engagement as possible.
So on the Facebook, for instance, is there a link to current agenda?
I believe the agenda is usually posted,
Okay.
Yeah.
Better.
not required to be posted, but it is, there's a bunch of things that the team does, and
Prominent.
yeah, it's like the actual agenda.
It's a post,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a post today.
Excellent.
For
Yes.
the AC as well, yeah,
Yeah,
the AC planning commission and the supervisor.
right.
But people are only gonna find it if they look for it.
Oh, correct.
I mean,
That's always something you can do as well.
It's not staring at you in the face when you open your morning paper anymore.
Yeah, that's,
Well,
I agree.
we can drive some Google traffic towards us too with, you know, technically coding searches so that it can come up relatively high. Anybody types in Smithfield Township, they would see.
By law, if you type into the township, Pennsylvania, or any township in the state, it actually has to go to the townships, it has to be the first. You don't even have to have a good web page for SEO, they have to make it the first one.
Okay. That's,
I think that's my understanding.
Is there anything done to proactively communicate to members of the community, other than just putting something in the paper, which probably nobody goes to look for?
Well, honestly, if you look at. Compared to other townships, this township does a lot. In terms of, I mean, a lot is not required. You go to the webpage, scrolling banner is all the major. Things that are working on, be it ordinances, be it conditional use hearings, they're all there. Promoted, there's stuff on social, you don't have to do any of that. The only thing you're required to do is post it in a newspaper. And on the front door. So there's definitely a lot of effort made. And more so than a lot of others, because the townships that don't want to have a lot of people coming and yelling, and telling them what they're doing is wrong. But that's not.
That's not the first time I've heard
That's,
from the supervisors that they don't want a lot of input from people in the community.
I didn't say that,
Well, that's what I heard you say.
excuse me. I just said this township does as much as it can to promote engagement from the community. Whereas there are other townships that don't do that because they do not.
They
want
do
to.
not.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I just think that there's a lot of stuff that we could do that is best practice. That isn't necessarily required by the law. But would get information in front of people in the community. For instance, if I want to know what's going on in the community, I would be happy to sign up for constant contact communication through emails.
So Julia offers that, which is pretty amazing, and for certain conditional uses, for certain applications. Things that in which the community has more vested interest, she has an e-blast that goes out to anyone that wants to add their email to the list. So she was doing that for the wellness, not wellness center. What was it called? Drug and Rehab Center. There was an email list that was going out every time there was an update on that.
so that's user sign up driven, you have to sign up for it.
Yeah.
Okay. And, going one step farther, which would be debatable, use the voter rolls to have email addresses for all the voters in the township. And ask if they'd like to participate in the weekly newsletter or something.
Brett, we do have a monthly newsletter and you can sign up online on the website. I believe if you click on the new, on the header, there's a news tab. You can sign up right there and you automatically get the monthly newsletter. So that's a proactive thing that we do here.
we don't print it,
We don't print it, that's correct.
it's online.
Right.
Does anybody know, I'm kind of reading.
That's pretty new too, that'd be another for one, that's relatively new.
So, yeah, definitely sign up, you know, and that will give, you know, and it'll give you a little more, I guess, constant contact
That'll
style.
be another nice action step, just add maybe for you, Alex, we just asked Julia to add all the EAC members to that newsletter.
Yeah. We can,
And generally, we could probably promote, hey, you there, sign up for the newsletter. In general, have you signed up yet to the township meetings? It could be,
like a sign up sheet out in the front there,
Yeah.
just like sign up for a newsletter kind of thing.
get
Is that
everybody,
what you're referencing, something like that?
yeah.
I agree, that's a good idea. I mean, I can certainly, reach out to Julia on the EAC's behalf and say they'd like something like that. And then maybe like on a clipboard or something, it just says, hey, sign up for the newsletter.
Even easier, get one of those codes that you take a picture with your phone,
Yeah,
your
QR code.
website. Post that on the wall, you grab it on the way out.
That's a good idea. They have those for lots of different, yeah, QR code and then,
Every page online, you can have that. It's a thing. All right.
the only thing I want to point out on this is that, ordinances are a big part of this document. And there seems to be a need here to learn how to use our website and actually figure out how to find certain things in our ordinance so that when we do our letters, we can actually reference those provisions and standards. And I'd be happy to set up maybe at our next meeting, just a tutorial on how to use our website and find, because there's actually let me just finish what I was saying, how to figure out how to navigate through E-code and look through our ordinances. I don't know how many of you have done it, but it does take a little bit of practice to learn how to do it at first. And also it takes some knowledge on how to differentiate between what is the saldo, what is the zoning ordinance, and what is appropriate to comment on for this thing. So it is definitely not something that is, an intrinsic skill that most folks have. And so I'd be happy to maybe at the next meeting have that, either, I'll ask Julia, she's an expert on that. I would say she's offered to come and maybe give you a tutorial for 15 or 20 minutes. So is that something the EAC be interested in?
Yes, I would say.
And just a tutorial on the website in general.
Right.
So there would be a section on how to do E-code and then a section on how to find all the things that Michael was referencing, with the land use. Plan.
Can I suggest, I know Julia's slammed with things,
Yeah.
instead of. Sounds good, how about everybody go and check out the website, which they might not have done yet, and go to E-code, play around, because a lot of it is. You learn as you go, interesting, and then go, and then if there's specific questions, we can bring in Julia, because she is.
Right. I was
Yeah.
gonna say, does she have someone working for her that could help, like an assistant or somebody?
Yeah, we have multiple staff, I'm just saying in terms of
No, I know. Yeah,
the website, I mean, yeah, come in because he designs the.
right, okay.
I will, yeah, so it sounds like between now and then, everyone here should spend some time on the website, trying to figure out what to do, and then. Maybe I can reach out to Jacob and see if he'd be willing to come, or myself. I also know a little bit, I think it'd be nice if he'd be willing to come, just to kind of walk through it.
I mean, I would also argue step one is. Get a little familiar with the ordinances, I mean, to be honest, I haven't read it end to end, I've never read almost most of it, if not all of it, certainly all the zoning.
You have them?
Not all 32 chapters or whatever it is, and a lot of it's, just straight same same thing in every township, but. Yeah, it's worth to go through the code, it's good to know.
I would suggest hyperlinking, if this goes online, hyperlinking this, readers could click on zoning and go right to the website, our website. And dig further in.
It is right there on the page, the access to the code,
Like-
not this one, to the zoning
Okay,
ordinances.
but if this is gonna be prominent, have an index, the URL index. So it's really easy for not necessarily for township officials, but for general public to be able to go in there and just, this could be their first touch is.
Could we get hard copies for the public to pick up here? We have everything.
Of that?
Yes, that.
Yeah, absolutely, I can reach out to them, Feature, and get that, they seem very willing to give as many as necessary. If
Get
it's-
a box, put it out there, see if anyone wants.
Sure, yeah, I can do that.
But, hard is one thing, digital,
No, yes, I suppose, there's no reason not
Yeah.
to. Go.
right, absolutely.
So that sounds like an action item to me, Alex.
Yeah.
To go on and do some research as to how to search ordinances, how to find information.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I don't think we did at the end of the last meeting. You had started when we first had our first meeting, putting out a note that said, these are the action items from the meeting, separate from the minutes.
Mhm.
So we could just know what it was we were supposed to do. The only action item I think we had in the last meeting was to read this book.
Yeah, I think that was correct.
And you got 4 already for this one, so
Yeah.
share that with the group out.
Absolutely, yeah. No, Brad, back to you on back to you, and I think it'd be appropriate to move on to B at this point.
Okay, update on open space future directions. Um, Gary Swartz, he's an old friend of mine, he's doing well, by the way. He's the end of his time inside, he's coming to an end. He's a good friend of mine. I talked about his farm. And we talked about his history. He and his father had come to the township asking if they might be interested in buying Mountaindale Farm, and maybe his farm also in title person. And it was a very unsatisfactory experience for both Gene and Gary. It was the time when they discussed was when the real estate market was at a low ebb, and they came in below. Well, I guess they gave them market value, but the market value was very low, and they tried for years to get the township or somebody to buy their farm, to no avail. And so he's pretty frustrated. And I talked about getting a conservation. What is the last conservation?
Easement.
Easement.
And he said, no, he wasn't gonna do that. He is very environmentally conscious and wants to do the right thing. And I said, if you could come with a number that you'd be satisfied with in terms of sell price, and perhaps the township could look at that rather than negotiate back and forth, because Gary doesn't even come in here. Say that, but it's reluctant to come and talk about the farm anyway. So I said, if you come with a number and offer it, at least we'll have something to work with in terms of our budgets and possibly getting other money. And he took that under advisement. In the meantime, he's also looking at a company, one of the big solar collecting companies approached him recently about getting solar panels up on the land. They have them now, they can build them above, and he can still use the land for farming. Put them up on 5-foot stands, so you can have dual use. And that's something he's considering that would give him a chance. He wants to live on the farm for the rest of his life. I said, and maybe or perhaps not, his daughter as well. I suspect it would just be Gary, but I can't say. So he wants to do the right thing. He's open to ideas, I could say. That's about all for Gary, but he's amenable to good suggestions.
So how much does he want for the property?
I'm thinking, I think it's over to, it's not even mentioned that perhaps right on shot. It's just absolutely my farmland and development. So it's really crown jewel township in terms of developed land.
What was the appraised value of your number?
They're less than 2 at the time he did it. He hasn't had it for something. He was like mid ones. So. And he had to obviously get another assessment.
It's just as the township can't on its own, pay more than appraised value unless there's another donor that's making that contribution. That's just how it works. So it's worth noting that. And unfortunately, William Penn is no longer in this business. In this area, they're basically exclusively working on Philadelphia. They're the biggest donor for this sort of land trust for land conservation acquisition, one of the bigger ones. So the challenge will be how do you find funds to support something like this?
Yeah.
I have a small update I can provide on this topic, so, hearing, Mitch had mentioned about, can we get a little bit to the bottom of, what happened before, and I see in my minutes, I said, it's gonna take 6 months, we're not gonna do that. I actually, Jen Chikaitis from Oakland Heritage Land Trust actually reached out to me. They have been watching a lot of our videos that are posted. So there's engagement, even though people aren't necessarily always here. And just asked if they could sort of meet her and Louise, who's the head of, Louise's last name? God, I can't remember, the Hamlin?
Louise Drummond.
Thank you, and so I said, yeah, I'll have a meeting, but let's include Pat, so Pat and I, and Louise, Troutman and Jen Chikaitis had a little lunch meeting. Just to talk a little bit about the background, and it does sound like there were some personality things and things were done that people weren't necessarily in favor of. Really, honestly, like just some personality nuance stuff. The township and the land trust, so things sort of fall apart. There's bad timing, COVID, all sorts of stuff. Conversations didn't always go well. Anyway, long story short, there was significant work that had been done. And actually, she shared with me basically a Dropbox folder with a bunch of different files that I'd like to get to all the EAC members that include basically a lot of the work that was done around this initiative. Including, not just this one page of the different opportunities. There's honestly, I think, like 20 different files. So Alex, let's find some way for me to share that with the group. It's a big folder, so there's a lot of files. And we should start going through that and looking at it. At the same time, I think the conversation sort of came up with the fact that there's been work done around sort of what areas we might want to look at, but ultimately it is around identifying a potential property owner that is interested in selling. Or creating an easement if we're to move forward with this pursuit of land for conservation. There's a couple of nice take homes for me from that conversation. One is that the township doesn't have to be the one that owns it. It could be a land trust instead. And that might end up being a good route to go for the township. If there's trust issues with the township being able to manage land, that sort of thing. It could go to a land trust instead. It did seem that the Heritage Land Trust, if there was a property identified and a possible person that might want to sell, they could be interested in getting involved again and helping out at that stage. So I think that's promising, but I think there's some legwork that needs to be done by this group around this list of people. And what was key was the idea that it's not just about pushing one's way through to somebody and saying, we want to buy this, and we want to spend only this amount of money. And then saying no, and then, having a fight. It's about identifying someone that knows these people, like in this case, where Brett knows Gary and can have a conversation. And we need to do that with other owners of land that are valuable from an environmental perspective. So we need to be able to identify what those land are, who the owners are, and then say, oh, who might be a good person to have a conversation with them. Now, the last thing I want to say is my last update. I know this has been put to the top of the agenda because there's a fear about the urgency, because the timeline from the referendum. And my take from past conversations when we were talking about taxes and supervisors is I do not believe, even if there is a mandate and allowed to move forward with adding a tax to create a bond as per the referendum that is set to expire in 1 year, I don't think the supervisors are gonna vote for a large tax increase next year, given there was a large one this past year. And the supervisors already all said that there's not gonna be another one. And I fully believe that, given that it's been 9 years since this referendum took place, was it 9 years this referendum took place, about 8 or 9? I think before there are significant taxes that will be collected to for a bond for something like this, the supervisors are likely gonna want to do another referendum. And so you're looking at probably at least a year. And so all that is to say, not to stop, but also we don't have to stress out. There's not like this timeline of the referendum's gonna end in a year, because I don't think the supervisors would likely, are very unlikely, including myself, to want to vote for a pretty significant tax increase because the people voted to allow it 9 years ago.
Very good information. Thank you for sharing.
And again, I think there's still stuff that can happen. I think the idea that a land trust could potentially own it, so there's not necessarily that fear. And I also actually have a couple of possibilities of some land that might be appropriate that I want to pursue as well. And I sort of encourage everyone to have side conversations. If you know of land that sort of has a value after we share these details, and you know someone that because that's the key. It's not gonna be someone that just wants to sell their land and make some money. They're always gonna have a better option selling it privately. So it has to be someone who really wants to do something as really almost a donation to their community. Because even though it's not a donation, they're gonna make some money, but it's not gonna be what they could make otherwise, so.
Have we, has anyone talked to a realtor in the area about, properties, their relative values and so on and so forth? These are the people who deal with real estate every day.
I think there has been some of that. My understanding from my conversation is the job that really has to happen is like a GIS mapping. Where you go into software, it's not just, you're not just going to Zillow to see what's available. Because 9 times out of 10, these properties aren't for sale. They're land that someone is keeping specifically because they don't want to sell it and have it developed. They're keeping it because they're trying to protect it, and this is offering them a way to protect it in perpetuity.
But I'm wondering if realtors, the ones who really know the area properties, are savvy to some of that information.
There's two approaches. One is you have a realtor do a comparative market analysis. Give someone an idea, a very good idea of what the property would sell for. Or you have it assessed. Okay, by a competent appraiser, and that's the two approaches. But the realtor, they both work hand in hand. So if the values are consistent, then that's what the.
Well, you said who's working hand in hand with realtors?
The appraiser.
Oh, okay, you're separating appraisers and realtors.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
They're two
well, I've
different-
had
they're
that
two
done in
different
my
things.
property, so, yeah, I knew what you.
And I think generally it's probably not a good idea to go out and appraise other people's lands without having conversations. Maybe I want to say that.
You have to have it, you have to have their permission.
Well, not only that, there should be some sort of understanding, there's some level of interest, and the appraisal is like way down the line.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering how much information is public information? I mean,
Most of it.
Except for the appraised value. Well, a lot of it's public information, but you have to pay for the software to do it. And I was looking at the Heritage Land Trust software, and you go on and you're clicking on different properties. Who owns that land? When did they buy it? What did they buy it for? That is public information.
That's the assessed value for tax purposes. And you have.
So you also have the value that it was purchased for.
Right, that's part of the tax information. I have access to what they call the CRS,
Right?
okay, and the CRS has all the information of what the properties were purchased for. What the taxes were for each individual year, what they've been assessed for, and any changes that have been applied, okay, negatively or positively to the property. And that's how they get. That's assessed value for tax purposes, which is different than when you look at a property to sell, because then you have what they call the market, the real estate market, which determines approximately what the price of the property would be if it goes on the market.
Thank
So
you.
it's different than the assessed value.
Right, thank you.
Would it be worth to get a heritage subscription or whatever it would take to get that, have that information available to us?
That might be, having a subscription to that, detailed CRS information.
I have that information, so it.
Yeah,
You're
it's
in-
more than just that, it's about being someone going through.
Yeah.
Getting your list, I mean, I would also argue, you sort of have a list, that process already happened, so may I make a suggestion as like a next step? I'm gonna share, or Alex and I will figure out a way to share all the documents that were previously developed when this was done in 2020. We can read through those documents, have a little bit of a better understanding of, why some of these properties were selected. And then come back and rediscuss next month.
And add to that list for anybody else's new ideas.
Yeah.
Right. I have a new idea. Buttermilk Falls. Have you thought about that?
It's totally a possible idea, I mean, I believe that's owned by Wyndham and they don't necessarily do anything with it.
I don't think it
No,
is.
it's not.
It's not owned by Wyndham?
It's owned by the people that own across the.
Yeah, they
across the
own,
line.
it's the pizzeria.
Yeah.
Maybe, I think it might be.
That old pizzeria that's been shuttered for years now?
Yes, they own the field that the pizzeria is on and Buttermilk Falls. The property is one piece, goes across to another,
It is for sale.
and it's for sale. Well, it's signed as for sale. Right. Yeah, it's an old decrepit sign, but I'd be willing with someone else if,
I know the property's for sale, and I know one of the challenges, because I've spoken to somebody looking at it. Is that in order to develop a property on the north side requires that you pay for all the road improvements through PennDOT, including a light put through it that you're talking about. That's all the problem, Texas is like millions and millions of dollars, but that's why it hasn't sold for somebody that wants to go to a restaurant or something. But it could be subdivided, so I mean, I don't know who those owners, but it's worth exploring, you might, and
yeah,
that's the key, cold calls don't work,
no.
yeah.
Find it, strategize, and figure out the best way to approach the individual. Perhaps as an official capacity and go talk to them.
Got it. It's an important piece of land.
Yeah.
With a very important water source and
Right.
tributary and.
When you come in the gateway, you see all the hospital, then you drive down the road another mile, and then you see Buttermilk Falls, and you realize, oh, maybe this is a land place too, it's not just business, and it's beautiful.
One of the conversation I had, something I thought, nothing's interesting is. I would often say, I don't know how valuable that is for protection, because it can never be developed anyway. However. Laws can change. Things can happen. That might allow someone maybe one day to do something. Maybe your setbacks will change one day, so it doesn't guarantee it. As a piece of land that is guaranteed protection, whereas purchasing it and putting it into a land trust or something would do that. But the other side of that coin is it's unlikely to ever be developed. Anyway, so maybe it's not priority number one, but it doesn't mean it's not a potentially useful. Piece of property for.
Oh, you have to come with agreement with Wyndham for parking.
Well, or if it's just for conservation, maybe you don't want people business.
But you have to clear it out and see it. I used to swim in that, I used to be the community
You're
swimmer.
not selling it now, saying you're gonna swim.
Yeah, I know. But that was where everybody in the township went to swim at the time. It was just great. And it's beautiful, once it's cleared. It's a great idea, so I'd be willing to pursue that with everybody else wants to help out.
Well, I can help you with that. I drive by it every single day, because I live on Unbelievable Road. I can't miss it.
We'll talk.
Okay.
But the action step, the main action step you have for the group is, we're gonna share that those folders.
Yes, I propose an action to share the folder regarding historical.
That's us, we'll do it, I don't think you need a motion.
Okay,
We'll do it,
fine.
and then,
It should be on our action items.
An action item, please.
Brad and Ken will.
Yes.
I'll need your phone number
Okay.
and you don't have one either for that.
Okay.
And then I'll motion to table this and to discuss it again next meeting.
Thank you. I second the motion. All in favor? Aye. Great. Smithfield Sewer Authority.
Yeah, Brad, I think this is mostly my agenda item here. As it turns out, so at the last meeting, the EAC discussed a more refined and specific request to the Smithfield Sewer Authority. With regards to kind of what we're asking them, and then I attended their meeting. I believe it was last week, and they also indicated they wanted a very specific request, so. I put together a very specific request, a draft letter here that. I'm looking for a motion to send to Russ. Albert, who's their chairperson. To distribute to their board and consider, which is basically. Respectfully requesting a 15-minute overview of the operations of the wastewater treatment plants. And a 15-minute presentation on the history of the sewer authority and a detailed overview of like the service areas. Two different subjects entirely. One, history first, I guess I presented that backwards. History first, I think is the way it started. And then another 15-minute presentation on, like the science and how wastewater treatment plants deal with human sewage. And also maybe, and some conversation about how large wastewater plants like the one in East Stroudsburg differ from the sewer authority facility off of Ivy Lane on the San Diego Creek portion. So, and there's a sentence in there that, points out that some of the stuff we discussed, but that's really what it boils down to is, could you do that before the end of the year? It's up to you if you want to do two separate 15-minute presentations or one 30-minute, but please, we'd like to request that you attend our meeting to that effect.
I'll make the motion that you send that letter. So we give feedback.
Second it. I'll say
We have discussion now, after first and second discuss.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion potentially? Cause I feel like maybe one of the reasons why we had a little back push in sewer is the level of how formal we're trying to make this, when really we're not really wanting something formal, we're just looking for a presentation. Does this group mind if I just call Russ and ask him to come in to do two 15-minute conversations and he can say, yes, I'll do that? And if that does not yield the result we want, then we would sign this and send it away?
Why not? I mean, that's an easy one.
So you know the guy and
Of course, of course. Yeah, even though we have the same last name, we have no relation though. Just because I think. Listen, we're looking for 15 minutes on history, we're looking for 15 minutes on what the process is. Can you come in and do it? Sure, I'll come in.
Maybe two sessions if you feel.
Perfect. I will ask that. If he says no, I will have you, then I agree that we can set a formal.
that'll probably get us a quicker response, because people might just say, oh, it's a.
That's my concern, is you're gonna have this letter, it then has to go, because it's a formal letter, it then has to go to the lawyer, then it has to go to the board. Or it's gonna be 3 months before you get an answer, whereas if it's just like, sure, I'll just come in and have a conversation. It's a little different.
Do you want to amend your motion to that, to what Michael just said?
I'd like to amend my motion to.
To allow me to call first.
Call first. And then give them the snake eye if they don't agree.
Well, I'll second that mention.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
I
Agree.
I've got an action script to call Russ, got it.
The only other thing on that same subject of the sewer authority is, that the document that was distributed in a board packet between the TADEP and Gilmore Associates. There was some discussion about this at the sewer authority meeting. I learned that I'm still learning on this. There's a lot of detail in here. I don't know if everyone had a chance to read through this document, but I complimented them. I thought it was a great letter. Apparently it took some time and effort to put this together. This details an something to do with Act 537. I will refrain from saying exactly what it has to do with Act 537, but basically my understanding is that the sewer authority intends to expand the sewer line by a minimum of, they said 40,000 gallons per day to be treated by the East Stroudsburg wastewater plant, which direct discharges into the Broadway Creek over by Glen Park. And that wastewater plant has some issues, as I understand it. Last time I checked, they disinfected chlorine, which is acutely toxic to aquatic life. There's also issues with water temperature being released into the broadhead, especially during peak summer months with low flow. It is a cold water fisheries by definition, so those are two potential things that I was thinking about that I didn't see in this letter. And then if you read the letter, the DEP appears to have perhaps pointed out some issues with out of basin transfer of groundwater from the Marshall's Creek watershed to the East Stroudsburg wastewater plant. So this line is proposed to extend all the way to Buttermilk Falls. Eventually, I guess there's like 7 phases now. But that is, the plan is to run it along the ED district there, which, you know, there's. So that is actually, I'm gonna try to collect my thoughts here, but basically, if you do that and you don't simultaneously run central water, what ends up happening is, let's say they did run the line all the way to Buttermilk, they would, those properties, and I believe there's 100 different properties that then potentially be able to connect, will be withdrawing groundwater from the wrong lot wells, putting it into the pipe and then pumping it to East Stroudsburg, which is an out of basin transfer. It takes water out of the groundwater of the basin of Marshall's Creek and puts it into the broadhead. And that is what the DEP has flagged as a potential concern as it relates to anti-degradation, because if you were to hypothetically withdraw too much, especially during low flows, I don't know if you've looked at Marshall's Creek lately, but it's not flowing very abundantly down even where it has a confluence point, which is the portion of the watershed that these withdrawals be taking place. There are potential anti-degradation issues. So I understand that Gilmore Associates is hiring, like, it has a special hydrologic special person that focuses on this sort of analysis. But those are some of the water quality concerns I wanted to flag for you guys, and I thought it'd be pertinent to have the EAC draft up a letter to the PAD and the supervisors. And ask the DEP invite the township supervisors with, like, the township engineer and the township manager at minimum to these future scoping studies that the sewer authority's been having with the DEP that caused this letter to occur in the first place. And you should also probably extend that invitation to BCRA, which is the organization that supplies water down, that's their service area. That way you can have all these stakeholders sitting at the table, you know, instead of just the sewer authority and Scott Novak from the DEP. I think it'd be pertinent to have our township engineer and the BCRA also at those meetings. So I wanted to propose that the EAC draft a letter to the supervisors and DEP to that effect. Just let's have it, invite these entities to the table for your future scoping meetings before this permit gets hardened and it opens up the formal process. So I just wanted to put that out there for discussion.
Does that letter include the scope of some of the issues you're discussing, or just in general?
No, it doesn't, those are the issues that this letter would basically be just to the effect of invite these stakeholders to your scoping meetings. Those other issues, we can discuss at another time after we do more research, I think.
Okay.
I'm a little confused about the location. So it's basically Route 209.
Correct.
Okay, from where to where? I just,
Good question.
I'm looking at the map and the map doesn't help me a bit.
Right, I don't have the precise addresses, but it's approximately from the gateway down to Buttermilk Falls.
Oh, there's been a lot of construction work along that stretch anyway, right, with the gateway project?
Yeah.
It's extending that?
Extending it down to Buttermilk Falls eventually.
Okay.
Alex, this map that we get, do we have a copy of this map too? Cold water, the ability, high quality cold water fishes. Watershed boundary.
We don't have a copy of that map. All we have is a copy of the letter. That watershed boundary, however, I can get it for you. I don't have it at this time.
Do we need it so that we can?
At this time, the action on the table is basically just to write a letter inviting folks. I think as part of our due diligence moving forward, we should get that. At this particular moment, I don't think it's necessary. It's a good question, though. I think we do need to look at the watershed boundaries and get a better idea of what we're talking about here.
Because, you know, yeah, I think that it might be helpful to know a little bit more in depth of how this, because it said that all the properties fall within this boundary where this concern is. But that's a lot of properties which will contribute, it's a lot of warm water.
Yeah, it mentioned my road on here, and potentially my property.
I live off of them.
Okay, so we're both potentially affected by this, so.
Well, Madam Wallaby collects our sewage,
Who?
Madam Wallaby. Madam Wallaby.
Water sewer company.
Oh,
Down,
it's a private company.
right down at River Road,
Okay.
you know where the railroad tracks are at?
Sure.
Right by there, across from the,
So when you get your septic pumped out, they come and do it for you.
well, it's automatically done,
Sewer
sewage system.
Oh, it is one. Okay, I didn't realize that there was, because I just have my own septic system private thing.
Right.
Okay. Now I'm understanding a little better.
Yeah, just to clarify, I'm talking mostly general. I don't actually have enough information to say anything concrete about what they're proposing.
Right.
Other than what I've already said, I don't know exactly which properties they are. I don't know exactly where it is now and exactly where it's proposing to go. I don't know the phases. I don't know exactly where the watershed boundaries are.
Alex wants this group to be able to send a letter to supervisors, because it will then hold a little bit more weight than Alex just saying, hey, you guys should do this.
Here.
Right?
Alex, could you do that, please? Do I need to,
Well, we need a motion for this? I'll make.
could I make a,
Okay.
Alex, I'd like to make a motion for you to write that general letter of invitation for a meeting.
I second it.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then the only other thing on that is I want to do more research on this. I want to do a really thorough analysis of the current 537 plan and really find out a lot more information on what exactly we're looking at here before, before I want to learn more and do more research and have this as an agenda item that we continue to have on your future meetings.
Okay. Just have a regular agenda item.
All right, good about for this.
Okay,
It's old, it will be old business next time, right?
Yeah,
ongoing.
Okay, ongoing.
Okay. Will that get it?
Oh,
That's what they're gonna put it.
I don't necessarily use, we may need a formal motion to have this recurring agenda items.
No,
this is,
you and the chair decide the agenda, so just make sure it's on.
just as a clarification, Alex. So you're talking about this is the old, this is the property that was purchased for that's backup for the New York Financial by LTS originally, that runs along, that runs,
Yes.
yes, adjacent to the Marshall's Creek, Buttermilk Falls.
Honestly, I don't know anything
That's
specific.
on the corner where all the signs are at Buttermilk Falls Road.
I can't answer. I don't know the exact, I don't know which 100 properties this is going to affect.
Alex, we're enough. It's gonna get, we can gather his ducks.
Now your ducks, Alex.
Yeah, I don't want to say,
Drop them right there, send your ducks, and we'll review it the next.
I would say the sewer authority made it clear that they do not want us taking things out of context
Right.
and jump into conclusions. And so I want to make sure that I relay that message here and say, let's take our time, let's, invite the township to these scoping meetings. That's really where you're gonna get. And we then evaluate it and see, whether or not this is something that, we want to continue to, I don't know how else to say it, but I think I said it.
Yeah.
We get it. Thank you very much.
May I ask a tangential question? I hope it doesn't, I hope it's relevant. But this week, the past few days, I've noticed a large crews doing septic work at the intersection of 447 and 209, right near the exit 309. Have any of you seen this? I mean, I saw dozens of trucks working at that, I don't know what it is, a pumping station right at that corner. And I just wondered if that's somehow sanctioned by Smithfield, is that authorized work? I have no idea what was going on.
Will they talk to you? You go ask them?
Well, I just drove by and saw these crews there. They were there for a couple of days.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always repairs happening to all these systems all over the place, and they have easements and they're allowed to do it.
I think some of that we should take on ourselves individually and have questions like that, because put it through a committee is.
Well, I just wondered if anyone here was
No.
aware of that activity,
The sewer authority brought, I don't know where this was, but they mentioned something at their meeting about one of their pumps having issues with
Yeah.
the flushable floss plastic things. They talked about it, and so there's something going on. I would recommend just calling the sewer authority and asking them.
I don't even know, when you say the sewer authority, I mean, I'm coming here naive point here. Well, who's that? Who are these people?
That's a very good question. So the Smithfield Sewer Authority,
Their office is,
yeah,
So it's a Smithfield thing, I didn't know.
yeah, well,
Sure,
so the sewer authority is technically a separate body that was put into place by the supervisors many years ago, but it was a separate entity, but they are a quasi-governmental.
Oh.
Yeah.
I gotta read more carefully, it's right here in the letter, I was wondering, okay, we have a sewer authority, right? Yes.
That's all right.
Great, thank you. And also, the sewer authority, they're very kind of clustered bunch. And they're not used to public attention. I think you pointed out to me last night. And so I was thinking maybe if we want to participate, we might even suggest if they might consider changing their meeting time to out of the workday. And so more of us could show up easier. Does that be something you might ask them about, Alex?
Can we start with the presentation from them?
Oh, fine,
And your phone call.
okay. Anything else about sewer authority? Alex, you complete?
I think I've said plenty already.
Okay, put your shades back. All right, water resource buffers.
That's right. I think Mitch had sent out Mitch, you wanna, Stuart sent this really good article out.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you are prepared to maybe talk a little bit about that, or
I can say a couple words about it. After the meeting, we were asked to make a recommendation on buffer distances. I just went online, and this was one of the documents that I looked at. This particular article is the result of a survey of some 50 inactive wetland buffer ordinances and 9 model ordinances, and they draw some conclusions. And when I read it, those conclusions seem to align with what we were being asked to approve. And I said, okay, it seems like a logical thing to do. We are certainly not, in my opinion, experts on this particular topic. The people who wrote this are. Okay, in my mind, I said, okay, that's the end of it. Now, there's a motion, I guess, that was made that said we're going to investigate and do a survey and come up with our own set of recommendations, which I personally don't think is appropriate. But that motion was passed. So then the question becomes, okay, if we're gonna do that, and I'm sure that decision could be rethought. How do we, and I offered some thoughts about how we would do it. So I mean, that's all I know about buffer distances.
So is this something that we could fold into our research to find out to define wetlands as a reference?
I think so.
Right.
It points, yeah, it's pointing out,
Right,
yeah,
for information.
it's very useful to what we've been discussing
Right,
in
exactly.
the previous meetings.
Yeah,
What I took away from the article is that there's no single template you can apply to any particular wetland situation. That they all have their own unique properties. So you can't just say, well, it's gotta be 50 feet, it's gotta be 100 feet. It all depends on what kind of land you're dealing with.
Unfortunately, ordinances don't work that way.
Yeah,
But, well,
but,
Yeah, but there are some conclusions here.
Yeah.
Where they say, okay, if the wetland is category 1, 2, 3, and 4. That there are standard buffer distances. I mean, how are we qualified to second guess that?
well, it's
And
about,
I don't really want to spend my
Well,
time going in and doing a research project.
well, this certainly points to the complexity of the issue and would help guide us towards. Well, knowing that there is no standard thing, and knowing that people get upset if they can't develop on their land because it's ordained, or it's like ordinance against it, it should really help us immeasurably to guide our discussions.
I agree completely, and, I don't know if this is a real word, but it seems to me that the authors of the study are advocates of what I would call ecological engineering.
So how can we fold this into that motion as an expert resource?
Because we need, well, it says that we need good science.
Right.
Okay, that the local government must rely on good science, both to achieve effective results and to meet any legal challenges to regulation of activities within the area.
Yeah.
So this is something that requires, probably the, planning commission somewhere along the way to help us. Because, then we have to get someone that is, versed or expert in, buffers and on these, buffer zones and these wetlands.
Well, the ordinance is passed, right?
Yes, the supervisors adopted it.
They adopted it.
Changes, which was an increase in protection from what this is before.
So the.
Maybe not
ordinance
to this, well, some of this is less than we have right now. So it doesn't have to be this big in some cases, like you were saying, there's some cases where you don't need that, 75 feet. In other cases where it might be, it's near a bog, which I don't think we have any bogs, but, not only 215.
I mean, I would ask you, is this a priority issue for this group to address? And, as the governing body, ask us to address it.
Or is it after the fact?
Pardon?
Or is it after the fact?
It's after the fact.
I think it's as a supervisor, I'll say, I think it's a little after the fact. I know there was a real desire to get this stronger, faster, and the supervisor were gung ho, and here's an ordinance that has got the changes ready to go, and it's stronger than it was before, and it's more appropriate, and so we passed it. I will say, if there's a strong feeling from this group that ordinance could be even better, it's not to say that if one shows up on the supervisor's desk and they think it's better, they're not gonna say, no, we already did this. That's not how ordinances work, they get changed all the time.
My opinion is we should not be working on things that the governing body doesn't ask us to work on. Because that's like pushing a string up a hill. Sorry.
Well, it seems to me that this is a general guideline document, it's not terribly specific. for anything. But we could ask the supervisor, we could share this with the supervisor.
You just share one of them. I think it also, everyone's read this. I think continuing to, buffers are a huge part of what this group can advocate for on various things, so it can also be an ongoing thread in what you're doing. I don't know that this group is ready to make a motion towards the supervisors, so there's some action right now based on one article. That's also not science, by the way.
Right. Plus the fact we're not experts.
But that's not to say you should let it die, so and Mitch, I agree with you, and I would say, if putting another wetland ordinance in front of the supervisors next month might not be appreciated, but another one that shows up 6 months, hey, we've been looking at this, we've been thinking about this, and we think this adjustment is in order, especially when they're done, I tell you that. It's better.
Well, can we table this to to a certain date for review? In a year or 6 months? 6 months?
It should be ongoing, because because
As long as there's something else to bring to the table.
contamination is becoming a big issue now, especially seeping. You have the forever chemicals now that been mandated to be checked for in our drinking water.
Yeah, they have been.
Okay, so this is a big issue, and I think preserving wetlands to make sure that, the species can continue.
Okay. Could I make a motion to have this as an ongoing?
I second that motion.
Well,
Ongoing discussion point for our proposal?
it will be old business indefinitely, then, correct?
and I would call it discussion on wetlands buffering in the township.
Okay.
There's no, which is very important, and I think it's okay, because we talk about all, whether it be ordinances, resolutions, enforcement. Having that as standing item makes sense.
Okay. Second motion?
That's seconded by James, so.
I did second.
Okay. All in favor?
I,
Group thing. All right. Thank you. Great job. New business, November and December meeting date change. So we're dealing with other groups
the
meeting.
holidays.
Holidays.
Yeah, if you want me to just jump in there and
Yeah,
Michael,
please.
you can also jump in since you're on the board of supervisors, but it looks, the supervisors are moving their meetings to Tuesdays, which is gonna cause two conflicts
It
in,
should cause any conflicts, because it's always, you guys meet on the third Wednesday, this group meets on the third Wednesday, right, third Tuesday, right? It's always been the third Tuesday, and the supervisor's gonna meet on the second and fourth. That was intentional.
I thought well, Julie had approached me and let me know that these 2 days were problematic. I wonder if,
Which days?
Well, December 24th is 23rd.
12th of November. Oh, sorry, this group will be on the 19th, it's probably problematic, guys, that's thanks, no, it's not.
No, the Thanksgiving.
Which were the problematic dates?
November and December, so if you look at the calendar, November 2nd to the 4th. Something in November, I guess, 26th to the 12th. I don't know why November is causing an issue. Exactly, to be honest, but I guess that it is an issue and.
Maybe because the supervisors are gonna. We can always move it to the Wednesday for that 1 week.
For December, yeah.
Oh, no, we would,
December
because that's,
December 17th is the issue. And then you have December 19th. Well,
We're not in the business of contradicting Julia. She says there's conflict.
Alex, the only way I can see conflict is if the supervisors have to move their meetings to these things, and that hasn't been decided yet. She's probably just thinking it might happen.
All right. I guess we'll just, seeing that there's no formal, no concrete.
to be determined.
Yeah, this is to be determined. I'll have a follow-up conversation with Julia.
TBD.
Thank you.
So just put that as a possibility on your calendars for maybe having to move it and, I'll come back to you guys if in fact we can clarify exactly what the issue is.
Yeah,
You still are planning to meet in August and October, August, September and October.
Correct, so it's not imminent.
And it's also, just so I'm clear, we're talking about August 20th, September 17th, and October 15th, correct?
Correct,
Third Tuesday?
yes. Oh, October 15th, yep.
What's the September date?
September is.
17th.
Okay.
Right, don't forget.
we always get a notice. Thank you.
Of course. Public comments, please.
How about all my new business? Oh, What?
More, we
Oh,
can't have any.
one is, I'd like to find a way to get some more formal feedback on recommendations that we make to the supervisor. And I'm not sure how to do that.
Feedback on your written letters?
When we make a recommendation.
Yeah.
And for instance, we made the recommendation that the zoning, I believe, not be changed here.
Yeah.
And the supervisors made the decision to change it.
Correct.
Now, I'd like to have some mechanism for that. And for other recommendations that we make, where we get feedback as to what you guys are, absolutely full of shit. And we're not gonna listen to you.
No, the planning commission recommended the opposite, so.
Right, but that's the kind of feedback that I think that we need. As we try and determine how best to spend our valuable time. To the benefit of the township. And was there another recommendation that we made
I
out?
mean, the beautiful thing about the supervisors is we are making all our decisions in public forum. So you see where the decision came from, it's recorded and it's available,
Minuted.
minuted. I mean, I hear what you're saying, Rich,
I mean, it's always better to talk about stuff than just read stuff, sure.
I understand. Well, you should-
The understandings.
Because we definitely talked about it at that meeting, and it came up, and we discussed it, and.
I gave it my shot.
Brett was there, Brett advocated on behalf of the AC, Pat was there.
And maybe the best way to address my issue,
No,
what the issue I'm bringing out, is whenever we make a recommendation, to have a discussion like this. I mean, why was the decision made the way it was? Because the planning commission believed.
Lowenheim, it had nothing to do with the air.
Pardon me?
According to Mr. Lowenheim, it had nothing to do with the air. My argument about the airport thing is totally off base. But
Oh, your argument.
the airport thing, anyway, I'll let that. Go. I have to make
So the new business item I'm bringing up is just generally, how do we get feedback on recommendations that we make? And do you want it? I mean, maybe I'm the only
you
one.
should
who
have
thinks
it,
that.
you should have it, I mean, I think maybe you have another, again, a standing item here on. Updates on the recommendations, at a minimum, maybe the group's not following how the decision went, so how is the standing item? And I'm here too, I mean, I'm one of those three people, and I'm happy to share. At least my view, I'm one of three, so I'm not the board of supervisors. I make that clear whenever anybody talks to any of the supervisors. They are one of three, which is not not a body that is making decisions, they're individuals. And they can give their view and their opinion, but doesn't mean anything. And
They're not all the same mind.
yeah, they're not all the same mind, and if I'm alone in my thinking, the other two feel differently, then my opinion doesn't matter. When it comes to a decision,
Well,
or opposite.
well, I could, I'm friends with, Robert Lovenheim, I could call him up and just ask him. Right?
Yeah, you can, I mean, also you can literally read, I mean, we could, maybe that's what it is, a follow-up, and Alex, this is another action step that's gonna fall on you as the staff member that prepares these, but when there's a formal decision and there's a response, maybe we can like pull out that section from the minutes and share it with the group.
Well, I hadn't finished what I was
Oh, I'm
gonna say.
sorry.
Yeah. But, if the supervisors are going to communicate with us as a separate body, then they have to follow the sunshine laws, don't they? And make that meeting public. If it were to be a meeting. If they were gonna communicate, if the three supervisors were gonna communicate otherwise, then how would they do it?
Three supervisors cannot come to this meeting and deliberate, she could have another supervisor here and listen. Technically, we're not supposed to deliberate.
I'm not talking about deliberating, I'm just talking about communicating information, that's all. I don't.
Yeah.
If I may, are we asking for feedback on specific actions that we've taken towards the
Yes.
specific,
Recommendations.
then why don't we just notate them individually? If you're curious about what they came back, or I'm curious, and ask them. Either go to the website, see what the minutes are, or if you want to have a conversation, rather than put it on our agenda, I don't know. I want to satisfy, that's a really good idea, but I want to be practical about it as well. Obviously, we want to know what if what we said has been heard. And maybe that's a case by case basis, or it's a general request.
The problem that you have when you have individuals talking with individuals and saying is that different people will put a different spin on it. And different people will interpret the answer different.
Okay, in that case, perhaps.
I mean, the minutes are effectively the decision-making process.
Okay.
You can't go any more clear cut than that, that's what I'd say. When we discussed each point that was recommended to the supervisors.
Okay,
When you make.
We really do our absolute utmost to never talk to each other about and deliberate, and that's where public forum. I mean,
But okay, you made a decision, the three supervisors voted, and the decision was to change the zone,
right, correct.
okay? I don't think the minutes are going to explain why the decision was.
Well, we talked about it for 25 minutes in that meeting. We talked about the information, there was a presentation on why. The view was that it made sense, it actually, if you looked at the property, it didn't make sense for that little tiny bit to be residential. Seems like when our forefathers, when they made zoning here, it wasn't perfect, there's lots of mistakes in this community of stuff. It's like, why is this R1? Why is that? Doesn't make any sense, because they went like this.
And the planning commission recommended.
And the Monroe County Planning Commission said that, guess what? It was in keeping with the comprehensive plan. Oh my God, that's what their recommendation was.
Can I call it?
That's what it was.
Can I comment?
So I actually attended the county planning commission meeting last Tuesday, and they discussed the zoning change and they said some interesting things. They said they had elements of spot zoning, but it wasn't actually spot zoning. I thought it was interesting comment to hear them say verbally, like it's a single landowner, it's a small parcel, and they also raised some concerns about the fact that it's gonna be a split zone parcel. All I can do is relay what they talked about verbally at the meeting. I'm not saying that's my position, I'm just letting you all know that the planning commission, they discussed this after the fact, which is unfortunate because they offer some.
Wait, who?
The county planning commission,
No, they provided a letter, I saw.
but I mean, their open meeting occurred after your vote. And where these verbal discussions occurred, you see what I'm saying, there was like.
Because there was a letter
Yeah.
that came before.
I can only say what they discussed verbally, and based on my recollection, I don't have a recording in the meeting. But I just wanted to relay that, I thought it was a really interesting verbal comment they made.
They did say that in the letter, that there was
Okay,
components of potentially spot zoning.
okay,
I disagree with that. I don't think it's 100% contiguous with another M1 area on two sides. I don't, they're taking the spot zoning because you're making a decision on one piece of property that has one landowner, so it only affects one person, but I don't think that's the definition of spot zoning, at least but they probably know better.
they didn't say what, they said it was not technically spot zoning, but it had elements of it, if I
Correct.
recall.
It
correctly.
did, but it did, yeah.
And again, I'm just relaying info since you brought it up. It's unfortunate, my comment is, personal comment is, it's unfortunate sometimes their meetings occur after the vote because of the way the timing works. And sometimes those meetings, they offer a lot of really interesting verbal comments and discussion on these things. So,
Because the letters are just coming from the staff, is that right? They've reviewed it for real technical aspects as opposed to. Anyway.
This is a pipe dream of mine, but I want to share it anyway. As a program, a code writer, I would, and are having a dynamic database driven website for a user to be able to click on an issue and see the results of all the different bodies, meetings and discussions in one line.
Well, we now have,
This is for you, actually.
no, I know, it's a lot of work. We finally have all the resolutions up. We're working on permits
Right,
and citations. So
yeah, it's really a question.
it takes a long time. We're just updating software and it's finally getting better. And it wasn't that long ago, you didn't have any of it online.
Gotcha, I know that.
Yeah.
But to have a thread, or one issue, the way, all the stops that made along the system.
Yeah.
In the database. It's,
Can I comment on that, Brett? I would say that to piggyback on Michael's comments, our minutes here at Smithfield Township are some of the best in the county.
right,
Okay, other townships, I would say, I've attended many other township meetings. More than I care to mention, in a diversity of townships, I would say that we do that really well, and we also do we arguably have the best website in the entire Monroe County, possibly in. The region, we have a phenomenal website where we try to go, like, if you click on the zoning amendment page, we have literally everything. Including the recommendation, like, we do a really good job at having everything at the click of a button. Is it perfect? No. but
And the
we're
other thing
really
is it
good.
comes down after the decision's made,
right,
because, or shortly thereafter, because it can't.
yeah,
Eventually you lose it.
I get that, but along the way, it can be a bookmark.
No, and it's actually a good idea, if there's a way, what we do on the website to somehow make that permanent, so that 10 years down, why did you come to that section?
That's my guess.
You mean like I'm sorry if I misunderstood, but you're saying like, take those minutes from that meeting and the recording and put them in, here's the final decision, this is where it happened,
No,
okay.
no,
No, I think he's saying that link that now exists for.
Yeah.
For every time we do a decision that has all those files, we just need a place to store that permanently.
yeah, on the database, airport M1
Yeah.
change thing, you click that and you see everything that's been
Would it be,
posted about
would it be
this.
possible, or is it already done, I don't know, to record the supervisor meetings on Zoom?
They are,
So then that information will be there, you just
it's
watch.
there.
Yeah,
I mean, you could, watching a Zoom meeting is fun, but you have that record.
Nobody's gonna take the time to do that.
AI,
Nobody has the time to.
Okay,
I,
just,
You'd be surprised, Mitch, we get 30, 40 people watching our meetings.
I'm sorry,
And I've spoken to random members of the public that say, I watch all your meetings to be
I spend zero time going on the internet because I have spare time looking for information on stuff that isn't a priority.
On buffers.
Well, that was came up with me.
All right.
and each time it's offering, things start spinning.
Yeah.
Okay, I would, can we include that?
Well, so I would just like, I'll make a motion that we have an item on the agenda that says feedback on EAC recommendations. And if there is none, then there's none, and if there's none, we'll discuss it.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
We've done a lot of changes to the agenda this meeting.
I know.
It's
Okay,
all right, the group's coming out with process, which is fine.
Yeah.
It's part of the early days.
yes,
we have to make the agenda public, so if we have this stuff on our next agenda, we've done our job, right?
And so for that motion there, it's only like for your next meeting, there's. There'll be updates on, for example, the sewer authority to the just relevant ones, not just let's start tracking,
Just
keep
the relevant
accumulating,
ones,
like, okay, I
please.
just want to clarify.
You don't put them in there, make your life easier and just put a line that says. Any feedback on, or feedback on any recommendations made.
The
Period.
governing
what
body.
he said,
That allows you to talk, if you realize, oh, if you make that recommendation, you can talk about
what he said. Thank you, Alex.
The other piece of new business that I have is that I'm not sure we're spending our time in these meetings and outside of these meetings on the top priority issue for this group. And I'm not sure that we have had a clear agreement as to what those priorities are, other than the number one priority, which we get from the governing body,
I get you.
which is the result we want to achieve, I think, that we're charged with achieving, is we want to get the supervisors to buy open land. Right?
That's what you say. I would say something else.
Okay.
I say, what about how what is the process by which the supervisors are being guided? So I look at the plans, the comprehensive plan, see, everybody's got a slightly different point of view on that. The comprehensive plan,
Excuse me.
which is, which people want to, their way, abolish. Because it's too, it's got no teeth and it's just a,
So-
laughing in the
So, just in keeping with sunshine law, we're not really supposed to add new agenda items.
Sorry.
But can I just say, this is a process thing, it's not an agenda item, but this group decides how it sets its agenda. The agenda is important because the agenda is what you can talk about. I would recommend, and typically Alex is sort of doing, and the chair are doing a draft. But I would suggest if there's something you want on the agenda, send it to Alex and the chair as soon as possible.
Will that satisfy you?
Can I make a recommendation? Since, lighting is an environmental issue, I think that should also be part of our meeting, because, and the signage.
So you don't have to do it right now, you can just email Alex and
Yes.
Pat 2 weeks before the next meeting and say, please add this to the agenda. They get to choose whether or not it's on there, but at least you voice your.
And you,
Yeah,
and
we're
just
just-
clarify, speaking to your point, that will be on your next agenda,
Okay.
and.
And we will meet.
All right.
And yes, so those two items will definitely be on your next agenda.
Good. There are machinations we're unaware of.
Well, there's reasons for that.
Well, and Michael mentioned that.
I'm wanting to public comment, I'm sorry.
Yeah, public comment, please. Jean,
I just wanna say on the website, there is kind of a pretty large paragraph about what the Environmental Advisory Council is supposed to do.
uh-oh,
And so there are 5 points, and I don't wanna read them because it'll take a while, but you just need to look at them. Open space is one of those 5, but it's just,
so we have to read? Okay,
sorry, that's, yeah.
Other public comments? Thank you, Jean. I'll see you
Yeah.
later.
Yes,
please.
please. My name is Pauline Russell, and I live over in Page Meadow. And I came because I'm concerned about the zoning. And I'm worried that my property, I heard, I don't know if it's true, that there might be a factory being built over here because of the rezoning. So I'm just very concerned about my property, because, I mean, for all of us over there, it will go down.
Paula? Where are you?
The Craig's Meadow,
Okay,
right behind, Country Club.
okay.
Yeah, so,
Oh, by Mountain Man?
pardon me?
Yeah, by Mountain Man.
Yes, so I don't know how true it is, I just came to get information, I didn't visit the website as yet. So I don't know if the information that I'm looking for is there.
That hasn't been rezoned as far as I'm aware, so you probably. I mean, you can attend these meetings, the supervisor meetings, are an important one to go to, we meet on. We meet
Second and fourth Sunday, second
Second
and
and-
fourth Tuesday,
for Tuesday, starting in August, for this month, we still meet on the fourth Wednesday.
okay,
And then the planning commission meeting, which is where any real zoning change might start there, or any building plans would start at the planning commission meetings, and they meet on the first Monday, second Monday?
Thursday, second,
Wait, second Thursday,
yeah, second Thursday.
that's for the planning committee.
planning committee. There's really, those are sort of, there's also zoning hearing board, not as relevant for what you're talking about, but planning commission, supervisors, and this group are the 3 main public meetings.
So all of
As
that,
far as I'm aware, I don't know of any planning development on the Mountain Manor property besides what happened with the racetrack, and that was a written decision that it cannot be there.
Oh.
But maybe I'm wrong on the piece of property we're talking about.
I heard that it was rezoned, for commercial uses.
That, I believe that land is ED. And has been for many years.
What's the general, what's a good touch point for her?
So another question, what is the name of this group?
We are the Environmental Advisory Council. Well, thank you for coming and being so patient.
I tried to get some of my neighbors to, I'm retired now, so
Yeah.
I have time.
This woman should have a copy of this book, because this is important.
Yes.
That we were talking about at the beginning, the ways that it's important for us to have public that come to these meetings to listen. There are people listening on the Zoom, we're zooming right now.
Oh,
But yeah, those are the three main meetings you might want to attend if you have time. Find out some information,
he's your guy.
no. But they're knowing, I don't know the exact property, but knowing exactly where your property is, I might be able to find a little more information about what I know. About what's going on there, but
Supervisors are your people.
is that Mount Country Kennel, is that? Oh, man, that's not Mount Country, yeah, it is.
Are they appealing?
No, that's further away, the other way, that's not Mount Country, I'm sorry.
It's back in appeal?
I don't know,
Great, madam.
I don't know what's behind Country Kennel, what is that?
Oh. That's not,
It's all,
that's her name's farm, that's House Road.
Anyway,
Mountain Man was behind what is so.
Craig's Meadow, Craig's Meadow,
Yeah, we have.
I don't know,
Craig's Meadow is Mountain Manor,
it is,
yes.
Right.
so. Yeah, so then it's not, right, that's our one,
So when there was a petition a couple years
your one
ago,
position, it is our one.
it is our one.
Call the office. Call the township if you have any questions. And they'll help direct you. If you have any questions about who, you just tell them your concern and they should be able to help you direct you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Thank you.
I'll second, I guess.
Okay. All in favor, see.
Oh, sorry, I can like to pick that up,
Thank
as
you.
always.
Good meeting. Thank you very much. Hopefully,
Bye, guys.
Sharon, very well.
Sorry, I just gave you the wrong.